There we go. We're so glad that you are here. I am the executive director of Birdability, and I am a fat, white woman with purple and brown and gray hair up in two big buns. I'm wearing some really chunky black glasses. I have on a scarf with birds on it. And to be clear, just so everyone knows, this is not the same scarf that I've already said 3 times this week that I am wearing with birds on it. It's a new bird scarf that has different birds on it. Um, I am also in my home here. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm in my home in Iowa City, Iowa, which is the traditional and current land of the Meskwaki. And behind me is a red wall and some green plants. And we are going to be doing something a little different today, friends. One of the things you may be noticing is that there's no chat button available to you. And I will tell you that in order for us to build a community, in order for us to build a community based in disability justice, part of that means changing how we do things based on what people tell us they need. And Jerry and Donna and Kudzia and many of the folks who are joining us here tonight are blind or low vision. And that means that often they come with screen readers. And Jerry, I don't know if you remember, but Donna and you and I had a conversation once. And Donna, you said, blind birders have to be in charge of things that are about blind birders. And so when you and Jerry said, we hate chat, we wish there was no chat, I was like, done, done. Your wish is my command. For tonight, friends, we just have no chat. We're going to be present in a very different way. So we will use, obviously, any other accessibility kinds of tools that might be useful to folks. For that, if you would like to have captions, please feel free to go to the bottom of your screen and in the toolbar, it says show captions. And Donna, if I mute you, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to mute you quick because we're getting your screen reader, and then
sorry.
just no, not at all. Unmute yourself when you're ready. And then we're going to figure out, again, how to keep being in community in different ways that meet the needs of our communities. So don't forget, down below, show captions is what you have to do on CC if you would like to use captions for our conversation tonight. We have ASL interpreters who are joining us, and we're delighted to be able to offer both chat and ASL, in part because of the incredible sponsorships that folks have given Birdability this week, including, I want to thank our National Audubon, who are our Golden Eagle sponsors, and I want to thank the University of Southern Utah State University, USU. I was like, which acronym is that? Utah State University and their Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. We're so grateful for their Belted Kingfisher partnership that has allowed us to provide ASL interpretation tonight. We definitely cannot start this without thanking a whole bunch of other people, including Virginia Rose, who is the founder of Birdability. She founded Birdability in 2018, and we became a nonprofit in 2021. Our work depends on people like you. And if you are able, we'd love it if you would go to our website and hit the donate button. You can also reach out to me if you'd like to send a check or if you would like a PayPal giving link. I'm also happy to send you that. Birdability Week is a celebration of birders with disabilities, and it's a celebration of a community coming together to create access and inclusion. And so we are so delighted tonight to be able to be having this conversation, in part because of the folks who are on this screen and the work that they have done to help create and then implement the first ever Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon, which happened in May of 2025. And I can't tell you what a joy it is. Jerry and Donna are two of our participants tonight, and they were part of the organizers who came to me and said, "Hey, would Birdability be willing to help out with the creation of a Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon?" So, Jerry, I'm wondering, I'm going to start with you and I'm going to ask you to introduce each of you in turn. I'm going to come and ask you to introduce yourself. To tell us a little bit about you, including how long you've been birding, and then tell us about your role in the Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon.
Okay, my name is Jerry Barrier, and I'm actually on this meeting from Annandale, Virginia, where I'm visiting friends, but I live in Massachusetts near Boston, and I have been blind from birth from retinopathy of prematurity. I started birding when I was about 19 or 20 years old, when my college professor in the biology class um, didn't know what to do with me during the lab portion, so he let me borrow Cornell University bird sound records and said he would test me at the end of the semester. It turned out to be one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given, and I don't think he or I realized it at the time. So I started birding in about 1972 and have been birding ever since. And I'm only 35 years old, so I'll let you do the math on But so I've been birding by ear, and it's has spawned lots of other hobbies in my life. But it has really been life changing and life enhancing for me. And I don't know what's behind me, so I can't tell you anything about my room. But I'm here with friends and happy to be here.
Oh, so delighted that you're here, Jerry. And we're going to come back to your role in a more specific way, but you are in fact, of course, one of the organizers of
Yes, yep,
Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon. Awesome.
correct.
I'm going to go to Donna now. Donna, you unmuted at the exact right time and ask you to do the same if you would.
Okay, my name's Donna Poson. Am I supposed to say what I look like?
You're welcome to say what you look like, or you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, whichever you
Okay, well, I
prefer.
have kind of shoulder length light brown hair with a few gray ones here and there, but I've earned them, so it's okay. And I have a purple sweatshirt on. I think it says I love bird note, but I went back to school in my old age, actually 50, and I wanted to learn about nature, but I really wanted to learn about nature so I could share it with others who were blind. And my first semester, I did an internship at a camp for blind kids, and I was looking for something to teach them. So I found those toy plush birds,
Mm.
and they made sounds. So I thought we can hear this, we can do this. So we learned about the birds around camp and what kind of sounds they made. And when I went back to school, I started a monthly program there at the Environmental Interpretive Center, University of Michigan, Dearborn. And the rest is kind of history. When I graduated in 2015, they asked me if I wanted to come on staff and continue to do what I was already loving to do. So it became Birding by Ear and Beyond. We study other things in nature, but from the perspective of being blind. So it's totally sensory friendly, and we learn everything without being able to see. So our primary love is birds, and we of course learn to bird by ear.
Thank you, Donna. And Donna was one of what I think of as the core four. So that was me, Jerry, Donna, and
Yeah.
Martha Steele, who was not able to join us tonight, who started and really did a lot of the behind the scenes planning for the
Hmm.
Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon. So,
Hmm.
Kutsia, I'm going to come to you next and ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and how long you've been birding and what your role was.
Thank you so much, Kat. I feel so honored and privileged to be here. So my name is Kutsianaki, she, her pronouns. I'm a South Asian woman. I've got kind of shoulder length, curly dark hair. I'm a new to birding. It's something I learned about this year, and I'll talk more about that later.
Oh.
So I don't have any wearable birding paraphernalia, unfortunately, but I am wearing just a black kind of cozy turtleneck sweater, and I'm coming to you from my home in Washington, D.C. So I was a former board member for the Metro Washington Association of Blind Athletes, affectionately known as MWABA. And this is an organization that creates sports and recreational opportunities for blind folks and folks with low vision in the DC metropolitan area, so DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And I served on the board for 6 years and also helped to launch our hiking program. And since then, that was back in 2021, I've really enjoyed hiking local, state, and national parks all around the area with blind hikers and sighted volunteers, and just creating those opportunities for people to engage in nature. And I was actually introduced to birding because of the Bird-a-Thon, and I'll talk more about that as our conversation progresses. But I also wanted to share that I also am the host of a podcast called Down to the Struts, which is about disability and design. And Jerry shared a very quick tease of his story. But if you want to learn more, I did 2 episodes with Jerry about his journey with birding. And we even spent some time with him teaching me how to identify birdsong, which was so fun. So I think after this webinar, Kat can send the links to those episodes if you're interested in listening to them or more interested in the podcast more broadly.
Absolutely. I should have said, because we don't have chat tonight, I'm going to send you all a robust follow-up email that has all kinds of things, including any links we talk about, resources we talk about, or other kinds of things that will be useful. So thank you so much, Kudsia. Maria Elena, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role is, how you came to be involved with the Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. I'm so honored, so thrilled to be here. I am an Afro-Latina woman with curly gray hair, also well-earned and cherished. And cherished. I'm in my car, actually, because I just left an evening walk at a gorgeous location here in DC, where I'm coming to you from the nation's capital. I was born and raised in Tacoma Park, Maryland, just outside DC. We call it Tree City. So I had no choice but to be in love with nature at a very young age. My father would tell me all the names of the birds. He was from the Dominican Republic. He would tell me the names in Spanish. And it was years later when I realized, or when I learned that those were all the wrong names, Puppy. That's okay when your daddy tells you those. But I instantly became, from a very young age, completely fascinated with and by birds and nature. Just the joy of being in nature. I've never lost that. Every time I go outside, it feels like, to me, it's the first time I'm going outside. And I became involved with MWABA initially. Really wanted to cultivate a relationship with MWABA from a friend of mine, a colleague who also did a lot of work with MWABA. And when Birdability came, the opportunity for the bird walk that we did at another gorgeous location here in the DMV at Brookside Gardens, that team was very helpful, very accommodating, and did everything they could to help us have a gorgeous, a beautiful, enjoyable. Everyone had a great time at our first Birdability blind bird walk this past spring. And so I'm the president of DC Bird Alliance here in DC. DC Bird Alliance led their effort, and we were honored to take part.
That's part of what I wanted to uplift, Maria Elena and Kudsia, is this fantastic partnership that happened, in part because you were already aware of each other, but in part because you saw an opportunity to work together, right, on the Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon with the DC Bird Alliance and MWABA. And I'm hoping to uplift that as a possibility for bird alliances, for Audubon chapters, for bird clubs, for nature centers in their own communities, especially as we start to think about the Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon 2026, which we are already deep in the planning for. So because of that, I'm actually going to, Maria Elena, now start with you and work our way backwards. And I'm going to ask you if you can share a favorite moment from the 2025 Bird-a-Thon that really sort of captured the spirit of that event.
Oh, wildcat. Not fair. But I'm gonna be very selfish, everyone, and tell you that one of my favorite moments is the moment when I when I became a better steward of my own experience in nature by experiencing it through people that were experiencing nature in a way that was different than I do. For example, we had cedar waxwings in the park. Cedar waxwings are a beautiful songbird that are marked with a little knob that is wax-like, shiny on the tips of their wings and their tails. They make a very high-pitched whistle, right? Because the blind and low sight birders are using different tools for their experience in nature and have developed their different senses differently than I have, right? Because I have sight. They heard that whistle way before I did. And it was in that moment that I'm like, I'm missing the experience of just being still and listening, or trying to listen to everything around me, right? Because if I don't see it, very spoiled and had become lazy, that if I did not see it, I wasn't experiencing it, right?
I
And it
so
was
hear
in that
that.
moment that I was like, I'm missing so much by not being present with everything that's around me in every way that I can experience it. And that was a lesson that I still carry with me, that I learned that day. Just with being with people who were experiencing nature in ways far different than I have learned to, and that I can.
Yes, yes. I so appreciate that. We're going to talk more about the role that folks who are sighted have in the Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon in a little while. But Donna, I'm wondering, I'm going to come to you now and ask you this a similar thing. Can you share a favorite moment from the 2025 Bird-a-Thon?
Yeah, well, we started at the University of Michigan in the natural area, and we came out of the environmental center. I was with a couple other blind people, and they're like, "What's that? What's that bird? What's that?" I'm like, "Whoa, I'm not spending the day naming the birds for you. We're gonna learn something here." So what I learned, and I tried to share with them, and I have shared with them, that different habitats can give you different clues about what kind of bird it is. So we were in the forest and we were in the meadow, and we left there and we went to a marsh where we experienced a totally different population of birds, the yellow throats and the yellow warblers and the swans and geese and swallows. And it just reinforced what I thought I knew to be a very good tool to use in habitat and connecting what kind of birds we're hearing.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. And um I'm just looking for Christina, when you're ready to turn your video on, I will repin you. I think you might have accidentally gotten kicked out. So um I'm talking because one of our ASL, there we go, interpreters, I think we had a glitch. And so now I am adding back that spotlight. Wonderful. Um, Donna, one of the things you were talking about there, discovering the birds, right? Like describing how to find them as part of what felt joyful to you
Yeah,
in,
because we
yeah.
can, hear different birds and we can try to memorize the sound. But, let's face it, we're not going to memorize 10,000 sounds and always be able to recognize the birds. So we have to use other clues or tools, and I call that the habitat as being one big way to help determine, well, in the marsh, we did not hear, well, I don't know, in the middle of the day, we did not hear a screech owl. So that kind of thing, it helps you learn.
You bet. Jerry, I am curious about your moment. Is there one that particularly stands out for you? And I think you had got to attend actually multiple events because Massachusetts was a hotbed of
Yes,
blind
it
birder
was.
activity.
Yeah, there were a few things, but I want to begin with a comment about my friend Martha Steele, who really
Yes.
had
Mhm.
this was her idea to start this Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon, and she came to me, and then we enlisted help from Donna and from Kat. Without Kat, we couldn't have done this. She provided resources beyond our wildest dreams. We had web space on the Birdability website, and I'm really just very grateful for all of that. Now, as far as a shareable moment, I think while I was reading the reports that people sent in, I must have had a smile on my face like I never have had before and for longer than I've ever had. One that particularly got me going was an 8-year-old girl in Massachusetts who I met. Her name was Addie, and she attended along with her two younger siblings and her parents. And the walk leader wrote in her report, she said, Addie was in her element and in nature, and she and her sisters loved walking along Indian Brook. So I just thought that was great. And I told her parents about some available resources.
Mm.
I talked to them about Mass Audubon, which is an organization I've been uh, directly involved with for about maybe 15 years. And so that was a real high point for me. Thank you.
Yeah, Jerry, before you mute yourself, I have a follow-up thing because you mentioned the joy that it gave you to be able to read through those reports. And
Mhm.
can you say what you mean by reports? Because I think not everybody is thoroughly familiar with how the event was structured or what it was that the sort of outcome was. Often a birdathon is about money and fundraising, which it was not for us, right? So
That's
can you
correct.
talk a little bit about what the fundamental desire was behind it and what these reports are that you were talking about.
Okay, I certainly will. Martha made it very clear from the beginning that her idea was simply to introduce blind people to birding and see if we can generate some interest. And that was pretty much as far as it went. There were no charges to join. There were no. The only report that we needed from people was to report the species that you saw or heard, or that you experienced, and however you experienced them. We did not keep track of how many of each species. We just simply, as a way to give people something to indicate how successful they were in their birding, um, we wanted to know things like I saw robins, red-winged blackbirds, yellow-throat, common yellow-throat, and on, the list of birds. But that's all they had to report. And we told them they could either email them, they could call them in to me on the phone, and most people did send them in by email. And we compiled them together, and it turns out that there were more than 200 people involved, and there were more than 200 species recognized. And to recognize a species, what we said is you have to either be able to hear it and identify it, or someone in your group has to see it and identify it. That's as far as it went. It was all on your honor, and we made it as easy as we possibly could because what we wanted was for people to get out there and enjoy themselves, and that's really, I think, what happened.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry, for that. And that actually brings me back to Kutsia because you probably don't have a favorite moment from that day because you were sick, Kutsia, which was so sad after doing all this work to put something together. But you were introduced to birding simply by the existence of the Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon. And I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I would be remiss before I start talking about that to not mention how incredibly fortunate I was to be able to connect with Maria Elena
Mhm.
as our co-partners in organizing this event. Yes, I was sick. I had COVID, and I
Ugh.
just it was too many people, and I didn't want to get anyone sick, so and I wasn't feeling well, so I decided to bow out. It was a very difficult decision and just super sad. It was as Maria Elena was saying, it was a beautiful day. Brookside Gardens is a beautiful place. So I had FOMO all day, but it was so wonderful that we had this partnership and collaboration. So she didn't really need me for anything. um, but yeah, I really I had never, we just, we have a general inbox, and one of my fellow board members just forwarded um this call out, I think that you all had put out about the Bird-a-Thon. And as someone who had been running the hiking program for 4 years, I had never thought about doing something like this in the course of a hike. We've done, nature walks where people will explain the foliage and the plant life, and people will touch rocks and moss, and we'll have kind of a tactile experience, but we've never done anything with birds. And I just couldn't help myself. This was just such an opportunity. And then I had one of our other volunteers who tandem cycles with us, had a connection to the DC Bird Alliance and put me in touch with Maria Elena, and the rest is sort of history. And I have to say, even though I was sadly not able to go, I had so much joy in planning every second of it. I learned so much from Maria Elena's like infinite wisdom and experience with birding. And we did actually an info session a week ahead of the event, because our group many people were just not familiar with birding. And Maria Elena was wonderful and kind of walked people through how it works and what it's like, and shared some bird song and talked about identifying bird song. And we learned about all the different cool technology that's available to help people identify bird song. So I actually a few times have taken out my app and my Cornell app, and have tried my hand by myself. But yeah, it was such a wonderful experience to plan it. I had a blast even just doing that. And that the end result was we had, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Maria Elena, about 30, was it 30 or so, 30 or 40 people come out. And
Yep.
and
Yep.
it was just volunteers and blind folks, people with low vision, and the feedback was incredible. People had such an amazing experience. So yeah, and then I got to connect with Jerry and do the podcast episode. So the whole experience really emphasized to me, and this is something that you were pointing to earlier, Kat, just how incredible doing things like this is in terms of building new partnerships and kind of bringing unusual suspects together, to create these beautiful new things. So I feel like I'm so grateful to all of you, to Birdability, to Donna and Jerry, for even having this idea, because it certainly made a big impact in our community in DC.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you mentioned something that I think is so important, and it's actually my third question in the list, which is about how this event helped to build a sense of belonging for participants. And one of the things that I appreciate you talking about, Kutsia, is the fact that your work with Maria Elena really allowed people to learn about birding. You all put together a session beforehand, right, for your folks there in DC, and did some just talking about the tools like Merlin or Larkwire, right? All those kinds of things. And what you all were doing at that local level, then, if you remember, we were also doing at the more national level. And so one of the things that happened, and Donna, I would love for you to talk a little bit about this too. It seemed like what we really learned was how desperately people wanted to be in community with each other
Yeah,
about birding, right?
yeah,
Could you speak a
yeah.
little bit to that?
Yeah, so it was really it was just a get together thing. It was like, we're gonna go out here and we're gonna do this together and we're gonna be together. And I might not have heard that bird, you heard that bird, but it was it was like we I don't want to say fed off each other. We encouraged each other, and like the more one blind person felt like they could do something, then that encouraged another blind person, and they're like, if you're going to get out there and do it, I'm going to get out there and do it. And it was really, like Jerry said a while ago, the idea was to get blind people out there in nature, and so they could experience it and decide for themselves, hey, this is a good thing, or I never want to do this again. But I don't know anybody that thought that. But anyway, it was just such an encouraging thing for one another.
Thank you for that. And Jerry, I'm curious if you could speak a little bit to then also how that happened sort of nationally, that
Mhm.
belonging, that sense of belonging. And I know you didn't call it this, Donna, but that one-upmanship, right? Of, oh, you're going to do this, I'm going to do it too. Like,
Yeah, right,
we're going to
right.
figure this out together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity for socializing. We didn't tell people they had to be quiet or anything, at least I didn't. And there was a lot of socializing that went on. A lot of people got to meet other blind people. But then a number of things came from this event. One was we set up an email listserv for blind birders. And to subscribe to it, you would just send an email to blind birders plus subscribe at groups.io. And people could subscribe. And for a while, the list was really busy. People were describing things that had happened to them regarding birding in their own areas. And so that was good. Um, and it also, we got a lot of attention nationally from a number of organizations that were interested in what we were doing. And that was part of what made us decide to do it again next year and to make it bigger and better. And we'll talk about that later.
Yes, we will. And part of that belonging really also happened on those Zooms
Oh, yes.
that we
Yeah.
held, because we also did a number of opportunities for folks to come together, and Jerry, to learn mnemonics with you, to,
Yeah.
for us to talk about tools like Merlin, which are just an amazing technological advance in terms of being able to democratize birding, as another blind birder participant put it. And so one of the things that we really learned was people wanted to stay in touch through that listserv, but they were also very interested in learning more together via Zoom. And Jerry, can you just talk a little bit about how that's going to play in to the time between now and the next Bird-a-Thon? Oh, you're muted now. There you go.
Okay. We can you repeat the last part of that question?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just about, I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the way we're hoping to build some national community
Okay.
between now and the next Bird-a-Thon.
Well, we will have several Zoom meetings during the year, and some of them are going to be more socially oriented, but some are going to be educational. We hope to have someone from Cornell University on to talk more with us about Merlin at some point and about maybe improvements that they're trying to make in it. And there are several other aspects of birding that we may have people speaking from an educational standpoint about, so that we become a little bit more aware of how birds live and what they do, and how to recognize them and all that. So I don't know if was there more that I'm not thinking of, Kat?
No, that was really it. I think,
Okay.
except I'll say you're not tooting your own horn quite enough, so I'll toot it for you, which is that Jerry is also going to do 2 sessions on learning bird song and mnemonics, and that'll be part of also what we'll be able to offer folks. So we're really excited.
Yes, that's a big, it's something I really enjoy doing. I've done lots of birding workshops over the years with children and adults. And somebody was talking about blind people sometimes hearing things that other people don't. I took a group of children once, and I let them hear some of the sounds on recordings. And then we were out walking, and I know my hearing isn't great as I get older. I'm 73. But a couple of times, one of the kids said, "I hear an eastern kingbird." And I'm thinking to myself, I don't hear anything. So poor hearing affects blind people too.
I thought
But
you were
yeah,
35, Jerry. I thought
well,
you
I
said
was. I think
35.
there may have been a math error there.
I'm really curious, you all, this is a question for any of you, but I think maybe we'll start with Kutsia and Maria Elena about how you approach accessibility when you're planning an event that's being created specifically for birders who are blind and low vision. And Kutsia, do you want to start us off, and Maria Elena jump in wherever?
Sure. Yeah. I always think of this phrase that I learned from one of my past podcast guests, Kathy Martinez, who is an incredible disability advocate and did a lot of work when she was at Wells Fargo around accessibility. And she always says access needs to be baked in and not bolted on, which I think is so right on and just encapsulates. It should be something that is woven into your planning process from, the very beginning, in terms of thinking about, okay, who are these participants going to be? What are their needs going to be? As Maria Elena and I were like planning, I was just confirming, that apps like Merlin, et cetera, were fully accessible, which they mostly are, like for people who use screen reading software or otherwise. And then when, we were making sure, because some of our hikers, birders, our blind birders and hikers, some people like sighted guide, some people like to hike independently. So making sure we had enough volunteers to meet everyone's comfort levels and what they needed. So really thinking about those things ahead, everything from, okay, here's Brookside, this is where the metro is, let's make sure we have volunteer drivers to get people from the metro to the park, all that sort of a thing. So just really thinking about, like, it's just really all about who is there, what do they need, and how can we make sure we meet those needs, and so they have an accessible experience. And it was just a lot of partnership and dialogue, and again, Maria Elena was just so incredibly receptive to talking through how we would make it all work for everyone. And that is critical too. So baked in, not bolted on, and also with, someone who has an open mind and an open heart and really cares about making sure everyone is included, because at the end of the day, that is the ultimate goal of access, right? Is to make sure everyone feels like they are a part of the fabric of what is happening around them and the community that they're in. And so that was really, that's really how I think about access. And it's not just about sort of compliance with these legal requirements. It's about having cohesion and community in a way where everyone feels that they can participate in whatever way they're able, and that they feel that they feel safe and they feel comfortable. So that's really like the approach, I think.
Thank you for that, Maria Elena. I'm curious, as a sighted person, if there were things that you had to think about differently, and if there's anything you would like to share about that planning that you did.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kat. And thank you, Kutsia. She's so generous. Thank you so much. She made it very easy to work with her and with Mwaba, because we were all after the same thing. Myself, and by extension, the chapter, we don't think that there should be any barrier to an experience in nature. The experience I feel or get from experiencing or seeing a cardinal, anyone should be able to have access to that same feeling and experience in nature. And that kind of fuels and informs our approach in what Kutsi was talking about, like doing a very thorough review, getting as much information we can from the community we're trying to serve, because I don't have that same experience. I don't have those same issues that I have to, work around. Even coming down to the language I used as we were walking, the way I described what I'm hearing, that might be different if I were just walking by myself and taking for granted that, I can look up and see visual. I have a visual where someone does not, or has more more of a barrier to the visual with low vision. Describing even the instruments and like Kutsi was saying, our Merlin apps and the different apps, really honing in on those that were easier to use or had better accessible features, right? Even the location. We chose a location that already had built an accessible track. We were very mindful about the path that we took, barriers, opportunities to rest, and the landscape. Those things that I would maybe not consider as much or in a different way being cited. So it was a true immersing myself in someone else's experience as much as I could, asking questions and being open to adjust the way I think that we usually, in quotes, do things, because there's different access and there's different ways to experience.
Love that. Thank you for naming that. And I will say I got to have the opportunity this morning to host Maria Elena on our Instagram Live, where she did a virtual birding from Constitution Gardens in DC. And listening to you describe the birds, because many of us couldn't see them based on, that was too far away or whatever it might be. And just what a joy it is to listen to someone describe birds, whether that is visually or what they are hearing, I think is such a delight as well, and was a theme that we heard throughout the Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon too, that it caused people to think differently about how they talked about the birds around them. And Jerry, I am wondering if I could ask you and Donna to talk a little bit. I'll start with you, Jerry, and then we'll go to Donna to talk a little bit about what lessons from the 2025 event are shaping this next year's event. Like, were there things we learned that made you think, oh, we have to change this?
There were things, and a lot of them had to do with we need to expand this because a number of people said to me, I really enjoyed it and I hope we do it again next year. We learned that we needed to make it international, which we didn't do on our first time. We decided to keep it relatively small. Instead of making it a worldwide event, we had it for people just in this country. But there were enough people who actually attended from other countries, even though we weren't officially recognizing them. They still did it because they wanted to do it. So we've decided to make it international. We've also decided to make it a 2-day event because we heard from some people that paratransit is not as available in some areas on a Sunday. And we had done it on a Sunday last year, if I remember correctly. And so we decided to do it on 2 days. We're going to do it on a Sunday and a Monday, and people can attend either of those days. They can attend both. Actually, our only request regarding attendance is that you spend at least 2 hours on one of the days birding, and it can be consecutive hours or different parts of the day, different locations, same location, with your head out the window in your own backyard, however you want to do it. But those are a couple things that we learned and are very excited about for the one that we're in the planning stages of now.
Donna, anything to add to that? What did we learn? What are we thinking
Yes.
about as we move forward?
I think me personally and all of us would probably like to intertwine birding groups more with people who are blind, like like Maria Elena, that's her group. Like here, like I'm in Detroit, the Detroit Bird Alliance or the Tucson Bird Alliance or whoever, to try to get them involved and for their sake, as far as they want to have the experience. Like we think as the blind people, this is our bird-a-thon and we're getting so much out of it. But I think Maria shared with us, it enriched her life too. And I think that I'd like to get communities more involved and organizations more involved of sighted and blind people that would give them the opportunity to say, hey, we're normal people, we can like the birds or we can not like the birds, we're just like everybody else. But getting out there in nature is essential and so good for all of us. I guess I'd like to get an earlier start on including organizations and giving Audubon or Bird Alliance groups more of an opportunity to get involved with us. And to we do want sighted volunteers, but what we really want is not to have obstacles for blind people to participate. Like Jerry was saying, transportation wasn't good on a Sunday if you depend on public transportation. But one of the things that we could have sighted volunteers for is giving people rides and getting them here and there. And that's something that could be done if we networked a little sooner and a little more.
Hmm. Thank you for naming that, Donna. I think it's really important to that last year was our inaugural
Yeah.
Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon. And as far as we're aware, and we talked to a lot of people, it's the only Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon that has existed until now. And so next year we have some grand plans, friends, for 2026. We definitely do want to get started earlier. We want opportunities to do things like develop toolkits for bird groups to be able to do outreach in their community and work with blind serving organizations to help create much in the example again of that we're uplifting here with Maria Elena and Kutsia, your organizations, and the ways that you all came together and developed something that was really blind centered, low vision centered, and that it was baked in, not bolted on, right? But to do that in partnership, what a glorious thing. And I just realized we haven't actually said yet that it's May 3rd and 4th of 2026. You can save the dates now, friends, and you can start working in your communities to do the groundwork to put together events for 2026. So May 3rd and 4th are a Sunday and a Monday. That gives a weekend day, as Jerry had said, but also a day where we know paratransit and other kinds of things will run, and it might be easier for many folks to get to locations for a shared birding experience. I'm wondering if Donna and Jerry and Kutsia in particular, if you could share how someone who is new might be able to get involved, especially if they are blind or low vision. What are ways that you suggest people might be able to get involved in birding? Not just the Bird-a-Thon, although that's important too, but birding overall. And Jerry,
I
I
would
see
like
you unmuted. You want to start us off? Yeah.
I would love to start us off. I'd like to talk about this a little bit because first of all, there's no qualification to become a birder. You don't have to pass a test or anything. If you think you're a birder or you want to be a birder, then you are one.
You're a birder.
There are lots of things you can do. You could try reaching out to a birding organization in your area and let them know that you would need a sighted guide, and you may or may not get some help there. You just never know. Some people are fearful until they've been around a blind person. You can also join our Blind Birders email list, which I mentioned before, is at Blind Birders plus subscribe at groups.io. And you can contact me directly. My email address is my first name dot last name. So it's Jerry, Jerry, dot Barrier, Berrier at gmail.com. And Martha Steele also gave me permission to share her address, which is marthajs at verizon.net. And Martha has an experience that I don't think she would mind me telling you about this because I've heard her talk about it publicly many times. But she started out as a deaf birder who had pretty good sight. At least her central vision was good. And she was that and learned birds that way and wasn't hearing them at all. Later on, her sight diminished to nothing. And then she got a cochlear implant. So now she's a blind birder who cannot hear. I'm sorry, who has hearing difficulty, but hears reasonably well. But she is totally blind now. So she has a unique set of experiences and is a consummate birder, no matter how you cut it. She is an extremely good birder. So you could reach out to her. You can also sign up for the birdability.org newsletter, which is a great way to find out about things that are going on. I think that's the last thing I have.
All right. I'm going to just jump in and say one thing, which is in the email that we send out after this, I'll include Jerry, your email, I'll include Martha's email. I will include the address for the listserv so that
Mhm.
folks can sign up. And I'll also tell you, I just posted a blog on our website that has a specific sign up if you're interested in those community conversations that we're going to be hosting from
Okay.
November on. So we'll make sure that is also in there. And then Donna, depending if you would like, I'll
Oh,
include your
yes.
email or
Yeah, of
I don't wanna-
course.
and
Yeah.
and I'm curious then, Donna, what about you? What's your advice to someone who is blind or low vision who is interested in maybe getting started in birding or in the bird-a-thon?
Well, there's two ways you can do it. You can get involved in a blindness organization, or you can get involved in a birding organization like a bird alliance. But I think the best thing is to seek out somebody else blind and hey, let's go out in the woods and check out the birds. I mean, I wish I lived by everybody and we could take a walk and I could help them fall in love with birds. But I think seeking out an organization really and getting in relationship with people and saying, let's,
Carmen de
will
Leon
you
has
go
left.
in the woods with me? Can we see what this is like? Whether meet up with a sighted person or a blind person, let's take off and go in the woods and see what's happening. And I don't know, most people I've encountered, they fall in love with it. And I would just seek out relationship.
Pitsia, I'm going to come to you because I think that's part of what you do at
Yeah.
LAVA.
Yes, absolutely. And I would share two things. I think that Jerry and Donna have covered all like so many resources and ideas. But the two things that come to my mind are number one, I think there's a lot of possibility for particularly, I come at this from like kind of the adaptive sports world. So there's lots of adaptive sports organizations all over the country. So creating more partnerships and connection between those groups that do kind of that outdoor stuff with bird alliances and other organizations that are focused on birding, because I think there's just a lot of crossover there that could be really fun. The second thing I would think of is I just think the best way to kind of seed this into the blind and low vision community is kids. So thinking about, kids in public school who may receive blindness services, their families. I think it's just a great way to get families of blind kids involved in these things. We do a lot of youth programming. We do youth goal ball, and we do, a number of youth events. We do youth events on White Cane Day, which is October 15th, just passed recently. So I think really tapping into young people who are blind or have low vision and getting them excited about something like this, and bringing along their science teachers or something like that. Like I can see like just a whole community being created amongst young people. And I know Jerry has done a lot of work there too. So kind of replicating and spreading what already has happened in that area.
I love that. I would add on, we have several birdability captains who work at schools for the blind, and that's another place where you can embed some birding programming, which they have been doing, which I think is such a, again, great way to introduce early on the joys of birding to folks who are blind or low vision. I want to wrap us up tonight because, believe it or not, we are almost at the end of our time. I want to wrap us up tonight by, first of all, saying again how sad we are that Martha Steele was not here to be able to have this conversation with us.
The audio now
She
unmuted.
was the ultimate, she was the person who ultimately said, I think we should do this, and then started approaching other people and building and getting that ball rolling. And so I just want to highlight that Martha is on a well-deserved vacation, but otherwise we would have loved to have been able to have her
Elizabeth
here
Bergman.
during this panel to share more. And then I'm going to ask each of you as we wrap up, one word to describe the Bird-a-Thon, if you can come up with it. What's your one word? And then yep, Jerry, I see you unmuted.
Okay, would you like me to go first?
I would love it.
All right. I came up with the word enlightening because many blind people have had no idea that they could become a birder or do birding
Mhm.
and have never done anything like this. So that's part of it. And then the non-blind birders, I think when they first hear about blind birders, they think, wait a minute, how could that be? They can't enjoy the beauty of seeing the birds and identifying them visually. And there are many ways to go birding, and it doesn't all have to be visual. And I always tell people, try not to think that I get less joy from birding than you do because I can't see them, because there are many ways to draw joy into my life. It's a great opportunity also for enriching relationships. So enlightening is my word.
Thank you for your word, Jerry. Kutsia, how about you?
Sorry, yes, I was just making sure I was unmuted. The word I came up with is feast. And that is because I feel like birding is such a feast for the senses, whether that's tactile, whether that's auditory, whether that's visual, and sometimes all three. And it's also a feast in the sense of it's a way to kind of, break bread with people and have community, and it's kind of a feast of community too. So that was the word that came to my mind.
Thank you for that. How about you, Donna? And then we're going to go to Maria Elena.
Well, I can't say joy because you've been saying that all week and now Jerry's saying it, but that I'm going to say wonder, that sense of wonder, like Rachel Carson talked about, like getting out there and like Jerry said, for the blind people to be enlightened that they can embrace and experience nature, maybe not in the same way sighted people do, but in their own way and with just as much depth. And then the wonder, for sighted people to kind of see, hey, we could have been doing this all along. People, all people can embrace nature, just in a different way of learning and experiencing and having that sense of wonder.
Thank you for that. Oh, wonder. Maria Elena, how about you? What's your word?
Now that they've all been taken, I was thinking about power. Because I just get my addiction to nature is based in the healing power of nature and just being still, the invitation to be still and to be present. And that's just amplified when you're in community with others, in that same existence, just in that same space. And that's what the Bird-a-Thon just allowed us to do and to expand and to communities that and Jerry's right, that we may not have otherwise considered or that aren't considered in these spaces, and why not? And so I thought about power, and then that specific power to include, and that we all have, and that all of and I'm sure, and I hope that for the listeners, that the alliances in your areas, the bird alliances, bird clubs, bird organizations, that you reach out and be present and be counted and accounted and use the power of your presence to make them include you, to be included.
I love that. The power of presence is a part of what shifts culture and shifts expectation and shifts access. I love that. Thank you so much to our panelists tonight. Each of you are a deep joy to get to work with. Donna, I'm just going to keep saying joy now. To get to work with and to get to build with. And we're so excited about the Blind Birder Bird-a-Thon 2026. We look forward to having you join us. Please spread the word. I am going to end our recording now, but we're not going to end our session